Welcome to the third edition of the Noble McIntyre Show. I am Dylan Buckingham, joined by the amazing, the wonderful, the always fantastic-looking Noble McIntyre.
I try. I don't know that it's always, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
As always, if you need any help, 777-7000, McIntyreLaw.com. They can get you taken care of. If you can't help them, you'll find somebody who can help them.
Yeah,
correct?
And that's, we do that a lot for folks. So a lot of folks, as you know, are intimidated to even call a lawyer to begin with. And then sometimes they call up and they don't know if your firm does that, if you can help them or not. So what we always try to do is, if I can't help you in that particular case, and I'm a personal injury trial lawyer, if I can't help you, I'll find somebody that can, because it's what I do for a living. I know the people that are doing the other types of law, so always happy to direct you in the right way.
Well, Oklahoma's getting directed in the right way right
Yes.
now with John Mateer in the fold. Finally, it happened. It's been maybe the worst kept secret in college football with Mateer actually going to Oklahoma. But what do you think went into this? And do you like a guy like a Mateer, kind of Baker Mayfield type, as I've called him, because not a whole lot of offers, one big offer, but I mean, he made the most of his chance at Washington State. Do you like this better than a Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, it's hard. Obviously, every year looking out during the recruiting time, everybody's looking at where's the 5-star. When Jackson Arnold came out, he was the highest or the second highest quarterback recruit in the country, I believe, and it was a coup. I mean, everybody thought, okay, OU's got him. And turns out it wasn't the best thing for us because, we had Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel only had 1 year left. And so when you're sitting there as the coaching staff under this new NIL era, when you're basically it's pay for play, do you pay Dylan Gabriel, who's got 1 more year, at the risk of losing what everybody thought would be the heir apparent, a 2 to 3 year guy, 5-star quarterback? And OU went the route that we wanted to keep the guy that would be here longer. Turns out he's only here a year too. We'd have been much better off to keep Dylan Gabriel, but who knew? To your question on do I like this, going for the 5-star versus where we are now. Coming out of high school, you may have been a hot shot in high school. It doesn't always translate. It just doesn't. And it didn't for Jackson Arnold this year, whereas we have Mateer, who's got proven track record. He wasn't the big 5-star coming out of high school, but you wouldn't take a 5-star over him right now because he's 5-star collegiate level. And I know they don't star them like now, but he is. But, yeah, I like it. I like that we're getting him. Other teams wanted him, and I'm hoping it really pans out well for us.
So it's been really interesting to follow this recruiting process.
Right.
And not just from an NIL perspective, which we'll dive into here in a second because I know you have a unique perspective.
I do.
And you've heard at least figures on this thing. But from what we know, Oklahoma really tried hard to push to get this guy, whether it be bringing in receivers with him whenever he had his visit on Tuesday, would have been December 18th. And then you had, in addition to that, a phone call from Baker Mayfield.
You can't overestimate how important that was. But just look at the Michigan situation. They had Tom Brady calling the quarterback that Michigan got. So when you can have a hotshot pro player from that school give you a call, it's just going to pay dividends.
Yes, and it seems like Oklahoma had this laid out very, very well. But at the end of the day, yes, you get to go be with Ben Arbuckle and your offensive coordinator, your quarterback coach. You get a chance to be at a prestigious university like Oklahoma. That's fun. But let's not kid ourselves. Money talks in this situation. And Oklahoma wasn't bashful with their NIL collective, One Oklahoma, about making sure the second they had something with him there that they could tangibly talk about this and go, here's what we got for you. I mean, we saw the little branded picture. We saw him with the football. I mean, it seems like they had this laid out ready to go from the get-go.
It's becoming more important just at the pro level how important the quarterback position is. And so you've got these schools that are going to be, taking their NIL funds that they have available to them, and a huge percentage is always going to go to the quarterback that they need to get. And you're right. They knew who they wanted. They wanted to bring him in with Arbuckle. They want that system guy to come in and just light it up. And so they were willing to lay a lot of money on the line to get it. I don't know how much OU has in their portal account, what's available. I know they work hard to raise funds to do that, and I know that you have a lot, just like OU, Michigan, name the school, people that really, really love the school that are willing to contribute to help. Be that as it may, the word is, what I've heard, and I don't have 100% accuracy, is it's a 2-year, $3 million deal at $1.5 million a year. Again, if you're out there listening, I could be wrong on that. I hear things just like other people hear things. Sometimes my ear may be a little closer to the ground because of my involvement with OU, but that doesn't mean I'm right on everything in that regard. But it sounds like they laid out a lot of money to get their guy, and now they're trying to build the pieces around him. You could have the best quarterback in the world, and if he doesn't have anybody to throw to and nobody to block for him, he's not going to do very good.
Which Oklahoma's been active on that front. They've got a couple receivers, couple offensive linemen. We'll see what that looks like. Obviously, 1-year rentals can be kind of tough because you don't know if they integrate themselves well in. But here's the other thing, too. So there's a fun rumor floating around. I don't know what Jackson Arnold's situation is. I've heard a number around 2.5. So it appears
Auburn.
Oklahoma might have even gotten a better deal on him, maybe a better quarterback.
Well, first of all, it's just crazy because you flash back just 1 year, and the word is that Dylan Gabriel wanted $1 million, and OU wasn't ready to pay that. Well, now you're a year later. The similarity there is the NBA contracts. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, the NBA contracts were nothing compared to what they are today. But as the money goes up and the numbers go up, all of a sudden it just escalates at a rapid pace, and you're seeing much bigger numbers than you did last year. And if it continues at that pace, it's going to be out of control. I mean, I can see a time, if nothing changes, where these quarterbacks might be getting $3 million, $4 million. We're talking about a high school player just out of high school, or maybe a collegiate player that's had a good year or two, that may not even translate to the NFL. Now, the one good thing about this deal with the NILs, you're going to see players stay in college longer because you can make more money under an NIL deal than you could as a second, third, or fourth round pick in the NFL. And it's just crazy to me. It's just crazy. And this will work right up until the time there's an economic slowdown. Because unlike the NFL, where it's contractual and you have to pay them no matter what the economy is, good luck being a university trying to convince a business person to donate money to an NIL when their business is suffering. And so we haven't had that happen yet, but we have cyclical times in our economy, and that will happen. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
That's where I think this is really interesting with you.
Right.
I mean, you're an Oklahoma guy.
I am.
Went to law school there.
Yep.
You've been with the school, I'd say, in terms of helping them out, in terms of donating and getting some tangible things out of it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Advertising, I guess, is probably a better word for it than anything else. But I was curious your perspective of this, because you've put millions of dollars into helping this university. Have they, or do they, reach out to you and say, hey, can we get something here to help with a John Mateer? Or we'll talk about Jeremiah Fierce here in a little bit. How does that work for you and your perspective?
So mine's a little different because I do 3-year contracts with OU one at a time. I'm in my fifth, I think, 3-year contract, and it's a lot of money. I am millions of dollars into what I've done with OU. And so let's just start with my most recent contract negotiation. It was as we were coming into the SEC a year ago. So I'm in my second and my third year. And they were making a big push then about, hey, the numbers are going to have to go up from what you paid when we're in the Big 12 because we're going into the SEC. We need more funds. And I don't know how that works on whether Sooner Sports and their profit sharing with OU for what I pay, if a portion of that gets attributed by OU once they receive it to the NIL portal fund. I'm sure that it does. So in that regard, yes, there's a request for a bigger number on contract negotiation. But I'm a lawyer and I negotiate very, very well. And so, it went back and forth, and I feel like I got a pretty good deal for myself in that year where the fact we were going to the SEC didn't escalate me too much. Because I'm in a 3-year contract, in a contract situation, I don't get approached when things like this come up. And by things like this, what I mean is we had a Jackson Arnold that we thought would be the heir apparent for a few years. It didn't pan out. We had an opportunity to get a new player, but we need more money right now. That doesn't happen to me because of the way I'm involved. But it happens to friends of mine that are involved with OU, that are business people, but don't necessarily do it the way I do it. And they do get those calls. And they do say, hey, we have an urgent need. We need to put into the NIL fund. We're going to attribute money to this team or this team. Because don't forget, it's not just football. It's basketball. It's men and women's basketball. It's other sports. It's softball, where they all are collectively trying to create an NIL fund. And in some respects, within your own program, you have the programs competing against each other. Don't kid yourself. Porter Moser, who's having an unbelievable year, wants more of the NIL funds that OU has as much as he can get for himself to help his team. The softball does the same thing. And so I don't get approached like that, but other people do.
Does it frustrate them? Does it frustrate to have that? I mean, they obviously, you have a goal.
Right.
I mean, it is to be successful, to show how amazing Oklahoma is, but can that be frustrating when that happens?
I think that it absolutely is. Porter's a friend of mine. I talk to Porter. I don't talk to Venerables as much, but I have had conversations with Porter. I haven't had a specific conversation where Porter says, hey, I'm extremely frustrated. I know that he gets allocated a certain amount of money to work with, and within that, he has to go build his team. That is such a foreign concept to 5 years ago when a coach didn't have to worry about that. You now have a coach having to manage a certain amount of money to determine which player gets how much. And then if you give this player X and this player Y, but the Y player thinks he's better than the X player, but the X player is getting more money than the Y, Now you've got strife inside the team on who's getting more or less NIL money when you're trying to build a cohesive team. And so you have all these extraneous issues that didn't exist before. So you have frustration at the player level, frustration at the coach level, frustration at the fundraising level, with an end goal of just winning.
You know, we talk about this a lot, and I know we've even had this conversation on this podcast, previous episodes before, but how much can you litigate this? I mean, look, I'm all for guys who feed into $1 billion business that are literally taking years off of their lives getting paid for this. But, I mean, how much have we gone too far to where you can't go back? Because I don't know how you litigate this stuff now, because you got guys that are going to, they're told by their agents, go in for a year, hit the portal, go get paid again. I mean, is there any scenario in which you see this getting wrangled down a little bit? Because I don't think we can go back.
It's going to be hard to go back. I don't think the challenge in going back with players that have already been promised a deal is a very difficult hurdle, because litigation can ensue. Here's what I believe is going to happen. I think you're going to have the Power 5 conferences collectively come together and ice out the NCAA in some regard. And the NCAA, which used to be this all-powerful body, has lost its power. It doesn't have the teeth it used to have. But the Power 5 teams know they need to police this themselves somewhat, because you have the top-tier players like teams like Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas. They don't want another school that has a billionaire backer, such as, you know, Paul Allen out there with Oregon or Larry Ellison with Michigan, to come in and help upset everything they're doing. So they don't necessarily have the same resources or money, so they want some rules too. What will happen is there's going to be a salary cap at some point. There's going to be some better rules on restricting transfer. You can't have a player transfer different year to year to year. Yeah. In the NFL, you can't do that. If I sign a 4-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys, I can't tomorrow decide I want to work for Pittsburgh. But to your point, how do you go back? You're going to have a period of time, I think, where players who already have current existing deals will be grandfathered in at their then existing deal. Everybody coming in after that will have to play under the new rules. You're going to have some people upset about that. You're going to have the people coming in saying, if I'd have just come in one more year earlier, I'd have had this different deal. That's no different than the salary caps in the NBA. You will have players that sign a max contract for 4 years, and then 2 years later the number escalates and a max contract's much, much more money, and there's no retrading that deal. So I think that there's going to be a different deal come along. I think the players that currently have deals will be grandfathered, and then down the road, after you've had a number of years to get rid of all the grandfathered people, we're going to have commonality and rules, and at least we will know what the playing field is.
I kind of wonder what this turns into, and this is something that I was just kind of looking at my notes real quick for today. You have Diego Pavia, who is the Vanderbilt quarterback.
Right.
Thought he played his last year
Yep.
because of JUCO rules, but now there's an injunction against the NCAA saying, hey, maybe those 2 years don't exactly count towards your years that you have eligibility-wise. Yesterday when I saw this, it sort of reminds me of like a COVID year, but you get extra stuff.
Right.
Do you think we're going to see an influx again of athletes coming in? And here's what kind of scares me a little bit about this too. You also have rosters that are being whittled down from 130, 135, whatever, all the way down to 105. And we're already talking about coaches losing walk-ons and guys having to get cut. What is that going to do by having eligibility years kind of go and get added on a little?
I do think you're going to see some of that, but here's why. I think this is where my perspective may be a little different than the everyday person. Here's why I think that's going to happen. In the past, you would have a player that felt like they should be entitled to another year of eligibility for whatever the rules were, and the NCAA would disagree. And so the player and his family would then have a decision to make. Do we want to spend money on legal fees, because it can get expensive, to fight this NCAA powering body to try to get back this 1 year of eligibility so my son, or if it's a daughter in female athletics, can play another year? And that was a financial decision they had to make, and it was only going to be a net cost outlay in exchange for being able to play another year. That's all changed now. Now you have the ability, if you can stay 1 more year and play another year of college, you can get paid for it because we have NIL. So the difference is, instead of a family sitting there thinking, well, we don't really have the resources to pay this attorney $300 an hour for however many hours it is, now you can have lawyers like me that work on a contingency fee. And I can look at the case and say, I think there's value in this case. you don't have to pay me by the hour. You don't have to pay me anything at all unless I win. But if I win, I get 30% or 40% of whatever I get for you on what your NIL deal is. So now families will have the ability to hire top-tier litigators to represent their child on a contingency fee agreement. And if they win, their child has that year of eligibility, and the money is paid to the attorney based on a contingency on what the NIL deal was. You're going to put a lot better lawyers on the side of the athletes than have ever been there before at a lot less upfront cost, which is going to change the dynamic. And the result is going to be the better lawyers typically win.
Okay, well, I have to ask this then. What does that do for a career of an attorney that goes head-to-head with the NCAA like this, gets the injunction passed where, oh, look at these years that now Diego Pavia can play at Vanderbilt, because he actually has 2 years of eligibility remaining, thinking, well, I might not have been able to play after this year. So what does that do for the career of an attorney?
So it's like everything else. If you're first to the party and you win, it's like an agent. The first time one of those agents got a $100 million deal for one of his athletes, what do all the other athletes out there want to do? They want to hire that guy. They want that guy. Their agent didn't get as good. So if you go out there as a trial lawyer and you pop the NCAA, get a great result for your athlete that you represent, they get a great NIL deal all of a sudden. All the other players out there are going to be saying, I want him to represent me too, or her to represent me too.
Yeah.
And so you can have, and I think you will have, some top-tier trial lawyers that suddenly start to specialize in doing nothing but litigating against the NCAA on behalf of these kids with their contingency fee coming from NIL deals.
You aren't kidding. We really are.
We're headed that way.
Yeah.
Headed that way. Because think about the money. So you're a typical personal injury trial lawyer or a litigating lawyer, and you're handling cases like me. Okay, I'm at my stage in my career where I only do the catastrophic cases. When I was younger, I did what everybody does. You start out on a car accident. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a $50,000 case, and you get paid. At my stage, doing this 29 years, I'm working on catastrophic injury cases. It's higher values, contingency fees higher. The NIL case is the equivalent of a serious automobile accident resulting in serious injury, because you could be badly injured and the jury might give you $1.5 million, $2 million, and you get paid on that. All day long, there's going to be $2 and $3 million NIL deals. Same valuation, but there's no injury involved. You're just representing a family and trying to help them out. Why wouldn't you go specialize in that? There's going to be lots of cases to choose from until this all gets worked out. I think there's going to be some lawyers that specialize. I think there's going to be some lawyers that make a lot of money.
Are you going to specialize in this? Are you going to move on from what you do?
It's tough for me because I am never going to take an opposite side. I'm not going to ever sue OU on behalf of an athlete. I have too much of a relationship with OU. I love OU too much. I have no problem taking a case against OSU, and so, or Texas, or that regard. So I think that you're going to have lawyers in their state that represent athletes in their state, but I think they're also going to go outside of their state. So I would be very interested in doing that, but I would never handle a case against the University of Oklahoma.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. I get that. We've been talking a lot about NIL. And by the way, if you need any kind of help, 777-7000.
7,000. There you go. I've got Oklahoma has 5 area codes now. I've got 918-777-7000. 580 and 405. I'm working on the 580. I got 539, which nobody knows about. It's one of the new ones. But I'm hoping to get to where I have all 5. So when I advertise, I don't have to say the area code. I just say 777-7000, and whichever area code you use still gets to me.
There you go.
Working on it.
McIntyre rhymes with...
Last time I checked, it rhymes with winning.
Is that right? Yeah.
I feel like we should tell that story again so people know. So when I was talking with the Whistler billboard folks, because I have the electronic billboards around Oklahoma City, the digital ones, and they were just trying to get to know me, and we were having a conversation, and it came up the story about I've got 3 daughters. And when my daughters were little, when a child's little, you can tell them anything. If you hand them a red crayon and tell them that's green, they're going to call it green because they believe you, they trust you, and they don't know. They don't have a frame of reference. When my little girls were little, I wanted to instill in them the importance of pride in themselves and honoring the family name and always doing the best you can. Mm-hmm. And so what I would tell them is, look, you represent not just you represent me and your mom and the family. McIntyre rhymes with winning. That's what we do. We're winners, and we want to respect our family name. We want to do our best. We want to win. We want to work hard. And it wasn't until my oldest daughter was in 2nd grade, and she came home and said, Dad, McIntyre doesn't really rhyme with winning. And so it kind of became a funny joke. So I still say it today at my home around my kids. I'll say, McIntyre rhymes with winning. All I'm trying to say is, hey, stop and think about what you're doing and take pride in yourself and your family name. But now it's on a billboard. So, McIntyre rhymes with winning. And I love it. It's fun. It reminds me of children when they were little. So I'm not being arrogant. McIntyre rhymes with winning. It's just something I've done with my daughters. My daughters are important to me, so it's carried through to today.
But also McIntyre rhymes with winning.
It does.
So,
it does. Yeah. There's only, my only complaint with the spotlight It's just never bright enough. Just point it at
It's
me and
more
get out of the
lights
way.
in here.
I'll take it from here.
That's right. Turn more lights on. Okay, we talked a lot about NIL.
Yep.
Somebody who's going to have to be dealing with some NIL stuff. We know where it's at now. And I really hope it never gets to this point. We're kind of getting there, though, unfortunately. Guys that ask for more money midseason. Jeremiah Fears could probably do that if he wanted to. I hope that doesn't get to that case. But it seems like we're kind of heading there. Not with him, per se, but with other athletes. But he looked fantastic against Michigan. Dude had a coming out party.
Like I said, a year ago, I think we talked earlier that what's the word when you reclassified.
Yep.
He was really a junior in high school last year, reclassified as a senior, and then now he's at the collegiate level. You're talking about a kid that just turned 18 that hit a 4-point play at the end of the game for OU to beat Michigan on the road. Okay, we're down 3, 12 seconds to go, and he was from Caitlin Clark range and got fouled and then made the free throw. I mean, unbelievable. And the kid is an 18-year-old. Can a kid in that position try to renegotiate midseason? I think there's going to be some efforts by some kids to do so, but think about the negative side of that. What are you going to do? Are you really going to, if you don't get it renegotiated, say, well, then I'm just not going to play the rest of the year, or I'm just not going to give my full effort? What does that do with your relationship with your coaches? What does that do with your relationship with your teammates? And then no team's going to want you to come back the next year, because what would keep you from doing it again? You've killed your career at that school, but what other school wants to take you on now? Do you really want to take from some team a kid that mid-year tried to hold you up? No. And so I think there's some kids that will do that. I think it'll be a very poor decision. Cut your deal before the season starts. Live that deal out just like every professional athlete does. You live out the terms of your contract. And if you want to renegotiate the next year and that's available to do it the next year. But always do what you say you're going to do. And if you say you're going to play hard for this year for this deal, do what you say you're going to do, and you can never go wrong.
I'm going to tell you, for me, with him, going back to what you were talking about with how he played and making that play, like Trae Young burst on the scene against Wichita State. It was I think it was either 11 o'clock or a 1 o'clock game. It led to ESPN putting a little Trae Young tracker on the bottom line.
Yep.
I don't know if Jeremiah Fears is going to have that. I said this about Trae too. And I don't like the comparison between the two players, because Trae was a guy that led in assists and scoring the year he played at OU. And I'm talking about the nation, not just a certain game.
Right.
Fears has all the pieces to be successful. He's getting some buzz as a potential first-round pick. Do you think he needs to go NBA, test the draft waters, test the portal? What would you do if you were him? Because he's got to prove, I still think, a little bit more before he gets the NBA call.
So I think this goes back to a little bit about what we were talking about with players staying a little longer in football at the NCAA level. So you only have a first and second round in the NBA. And there's very few players. In all reality, it's tough to be a second-round pick and really stick sometimes. I mean, there's certainly examples of players that have done that, but there's just so few players picked each year going into the NBA that unless you think you're going to be a first-rounder, which you probably would, or into the second-rounder, you can make so much money at the collegiate level anyway. Stay another year, develop your game, get paid on the NIL deal, delay trying to do that 1 year so that when you go into the NBA, you have that much more experience, that much more talent, and you have a better chance of success. Because whether you're talking NCAA football to the NFL or NCAA basketball to the NBA, there are always players that look like they're going to be great that don't pan out. If you go in and it doesn't pan out, it's not like you can go back. You can't go back and play, the collegiate level. So I would stay, play, get another year in. Some of those college years are the best times of these athletes' life. When it turns into the real hardcore business, it's not as much fun. And so I wouldn't do that. I would keep playing. And I'm saying that because I'm an OU guy that wants him there 4 years.
Well, that's fair enough.
Yep.
I don't know if we'll see that,
no,
but that's
we won't.
Okay. That's okay.
We won't.
You did have a fun time during the game, though. I mean, I know you sent a couple of fun text messages.
I did. So, I was sitting here. I'll show you we'll hold this up. So, at the end of the game, I'm sitting there, and I text Joe Castiglione because I know Joe, and I've got his number. And I text him. I said, wow, what a game. This was at 10:25 p.m., right after the game. He texted me back 5 minutes later, massive win. And I said, it was huge. Congratulations. He said, I'm so happy for the guys. So that's where it's fun to be me. I know everybody can't do that, and sometimes I lose sight of that. I also texted Porter, right after the game. Still waiting for Porter to text me back, but he always does. But, yeah, just the ability for me to text, the president of the university, the athletic director of the university, the head coaches. It's a pretty unique experience to be able to do things like that. And sometimes I forget not everybody can do that. I just take it for granted. I pick up my phone and text Castiglione. He texts me right back.
Well, you brought this up earlier, too, and I think that's the other aspect, too, that I think is awesome about this. Is not just hey, Noble advertises with us and he donates money. Like, Porter had you out to his house after you'd had your
heart surgery. Yep.
Which is pretty awesome. And what was that experience like?
That's great. I just called him up and tell him what's going on, and I'd had the surgery. He said, come on out. So it was just he and I, and he's got a great house in Norman, and we went out and just hung out and had an adult beverage and talked and caught up on things. And, I've golfed with him a couple of times. That's what I try to do in what I'm doing. So I do things with NIL with OU too, but I do it where I brand McIntyre Law. I play a judge, and it's called Make Your Case. And we just shot some 2 weeks ago where athletes come in, they take a competing position on something. Sometimes it's silly. Basketball last year was, aliens versus non-aliens. Are they real? And they're arguing back and forth, and I play a judge. We did one which was the better NBA era, the current time, or the Michael Jordan era. So it's a lot of fun, and we do that. To my knowledge, I'm the only person, and OU has received phone calls from other colleges where somebody doing an NIL deal with the school is embedded and integrated into what they're doing. So in other words, I'm not just giving them money where my name's not in anything. I'm not giving them money where my name is on something, but I'm not on something. I'm actually integrated in, interacting with the athletes. What that has allowed me to do is develop a relationship with the athletes beyond just hiring them to do a commercial. They know who I am. I mean, they know who I am because I'm doing stuff with them. It allows me to have a relationship better with the coaches because I'm working with their athletes directly. I've had Joe Castiglione come up after we did the first few and said, man, this is amazing. We're showing other schools what we're doing. So it helps me build that relationship beyond just an economic deal where Noble McIntyre Law is writing a check. There's a lot of people doing that. What you don't have is a lot of people doing what I'm doing, which is an interaction with the athletes, the coaches, the people at Sooner Sports, and it just helps them know me better and makes me help them know them better.
Okay, so you did say aliens and Jordan era, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah,
yep.
I think we're all on the same page. All the drone stuff is happening right
now.
All
the drone stuff, that's crazy what's going on the drones. And we've talked earlier, I'm not sure whether you really believe that it's alien drones or what it is, but it's a crazy time. We live in a crazy world. Maybe it's AI, that's running all these drones.
Man, I'm not smart enough for all this stuff. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, nobody's as smart as AI. I don't care who you are. It's getting smarter every day, and it's down the road. It's going to be scary how it may become a self-aware. I don't know, because they're pulling from the full vastness of knowledge that's ever existed, where we only have our personal experiences and what we've taught or learned. And we use AI at my office. I uploaded a 1,000-page medical report into AI last week. It would have taken an attorney working for me a day and a half to read the records, outline it, make notes. AI did it in 60 seconds. And it was phenomenal. It read even the handwritten portions of the medical journals. It can read it. It's insane.
Wow. I used to be one of those guys that would say, we're never going to have the robots take over and take us out. They really might. I'm starting to get into that.
So Terminator, obviously Terminator, when Skynet went self-knowledge in that show, that seems just fantastical, could never happen. It literally could. You could have a computer that becomes so intelligent that it's making this cost-benefit analysis of a decision and one day exclude the human element and cause some serious problems. And it's just crazy. And it's just that it's so smart, and it's just crazy. There's a lot of warning signs that need to come with AI. Now, people say AI is going to replace a lot of jobs, and it will, and it already has. Like out on the longshoreman dock, where it can run computers and pick up things and move cranes. It can't do what I do because I stand in front of a jury and talk, and you have to react quickly. So my position's okay, but there's a lot of people that factory type job that computers can do it all. And so what do you do when computers take over the world?
I don't know. They're not taking over Christmas, though, which is good.
No.
That makes me happy. Favorite holiday by far?
For me, by far. By far.
It's like just the best time. I don't know why. It just is.
Well, for me, growing up, so I was born in Fargo, North Dakota. And,
really?
And we moved down to Fargo when I was a year old to Burns Flat. So I've been raised in Oklahoma. My mom and dad, all my brothers and sisters here. But I have an extensive family in Fargo because that's where my mother and my father were from. My dad wrestled and played college football for North Dakota State.
Okay.
And so we would go back every Christmas and every summer. Summer would be a couple weeks, and at Christmas we were always there at Christmas. We'd drive up and spend a week and a half, 10 days with my family in North Dakota. Well, it always snows there, tons of snow. I mean, Christmas trees everywhere. You cut down your own Christmas tree. So I grew up with this amazing memory of being surrounded by extended family and cousins and food, and it was just amazing. Always snow, building snow caves. So Christmas is 100% my favorite holiday.
What traditions do you guys have? I mean, obviously over the years, it sounds like you guys don't go up there as much.
No, now that we're older, it's tough. But, we still have the same traditions that we do here. I've taken my kids up there some, but not as much. Look, grew up in a very, very Christian home. I married a Baptist preacher's daughter. That doesn't get you into heaven, but it can't hurt. And so, so she obviously grew up similar to me in that, trying to remember the true reason of Christmas versus the commercialized reason of just presents. And so our family tradition always was on Christmas Eve, we would all come together before any presents got opened, and my grandfather would read, the Christmas story from the Bible, and then we would have that moment, and we'd have prayer, and then we would have the gifts. And so we had that component that became very important in the Christmas time. And what it helped me do was, as I became older and successful, and you have all these things pulling at your attention, is just to go back to my foundation and my beginning and remember, okay, Christmas isn't about me getting a present. It's not even about me giving somebody a present. There's a whole different reason that's outside of just living the day-to-day, and that became our family tradition and remains that.
See, for us, it's go to church, and then it's read the night before Christmas, and then, we have family all over Oklahoma, so we're always just all over the place. But, we try to, I think for me, it's not just about those, like, Christmas Eve, Christmas days. It's pretty much from, like, the end of Thanksgiving all the way through. And that's where I love, like, going to look at Christmas lights, getting ready to see the family, doing all the family things you can. Like, those are the traditions I'll always remember.
I agree. Now, the bad thing that comes with this is I love food. I love to eat.
Yes.
And so I got on a scale a month ago. Okay. And I went through the heart surgery, and I've worked hard to be in shape. And I'm 6'1", 193 pounds a month ago. And so I'm doing pretty good. I'm at 193. That's great for me. I look good. I got on the scale this morning, and it said 198. Woo! At first, it didn't say numbers. It just said, get off me. And then the numbers kicked in. I'm like, how did I gain 5 pounds in 4 weeks? And let me tell you how. I get all these gifts sent to my office from people we work with, lawyers around the country, clients in the past, different vendors we use, and it's things like chocolate chip cookies and fudge and you name it. And there's this poison that they send me called moose munch. And have you had moose munch?
No. What is it?
It's like crack, like what I would think crack cocaine would be like. You can't stop. I opened this bag of moose munch. I ate so much. My jaws literally hurt from all the chewing, and I didn't stop eating. I just kept eating and eating and eating. I didn't know that I loved it that much. So between the cookies and the fudge and the moose munch, I've apparently put on 5 pounds.
What is in moose munch? I need more details.
It's caramel covered popcorn with just the right amount of sugar and salt with some nut. It's so good. I'm gonna get you a bag of there's peanuts in there. And so it's not good for me. So between Thanksgiving and now, I feel like I'm going to gain a lot of weight. Here's why that's a problem. I turned 55 on February 11th. I've had a goal for the last 2 years to be a certain weight and a certain look at 55. Because if you look around, when you're younger, it's not as hard to stay in shape. It's still hard because the food we have in this country is so fatty and not good for you.
Sure.
But as you get older, you look around and a lot of folks are struggling with weight. And I wanted to be very, very fit on my 55th birthday, so I'm working hard, and I've been sabotaged by moose munch.
They're trying to get you.
They're trying to get me
Big moose munch is trying to get you.
To derail me. So help me, if that scale goes north, if there's a 2 on there, if it says 200, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Let me just tell you, as somebody who has not seen under 100 since about 6th grade, or
under 200,
under 200, sorry. Yeah, it's a fun place to be. It's great when clothes fit tighter and you can't breathe.
Yeah.
I love it. My belts and suits are like, why?
Well, what about you? I mean, all the stuff you eat, do you struggle?
My big one, yes, absolutely, 100%. My big thing that I go to, I'm not a big sweets guy.
Okay, I am.
See, I'm the opposite where I'll go more fatty food. So my family does a thing called sausage balls, which is basically Bisquick, sausage, cheese, amazing. That's what it is, little balls. I mean, we can make an SNL skit out of this.
Cheese is so bad for you.
Oh,
I mean,
dude,
all
it's
the
awful.
calories. Queso.
But that's my go-to. I love cheese. Now,
in your queso, do you like the sausage mixed in the queso, or you don't want straight? I do too.
Yes.
When you dip that chip in there and you get that little surprise piece of sausage.
Oh,
it's so good.
The thicker the better.
Yeah.
There's a joke
and
in there
do you
somewhere.
like your salt? Do you like your chips really salty? Like if you go to Ted's,
I'll hit it with some salt real fast, but nothing. I don't just douse stuff in salt. That's just not my style for whatever reason. Like if I make eggs, don't douse it in salt. A lot of times it's just over medium. I might hit it with a little pepper. If I do like scrambled eggs, hot sauce.
Really?
Hot sauce. I love
hot sauce on your scrambled eggs.
Yep.
So when you go to Sonic and you get the Sonic breakfast burrito, you're doing the hot sauce.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anything spicy is
I'm
good
getting
for me.
hungry now.
I know.
I'm getting hungry now. But all that to gain 5 pounds, and I need to get that weight off. But yes, I love Christmas. I love the food. What about eggnog? Are you an eggnog guy?
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh,
Nutmeg on top?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Eggnog is. But have you ever read that label? How many calories are in a cup of eggnog?
Yeah.
You drink a cup of eggnog, you got to go walk around the block 17 times to come back and get your second glass.
Okay, here's a weird question. Do you like Fireball?
Yes.
Okay, there's an eggnog Fireball that's out right now.
Is it the legit Fireball or the fake stuff?
Well, it's like Fireball made this eggnog.
Okay.
It's very good.
Wow.
I would tell you to try it.
You should have had some here. We
I
could have
should
done
have brought it
Fireball
with
egg
me.
ball shots.
I got an anchor tonight, though. That would not be fun.
It'll worn off by then.
Yeah. Slur the words. Let me tell you about John is here today.
That would have made an interesting show.
It definitely would have made an interesting
But
show.
I do
that's for
love
sure.
Christmas, do love the lights. And when my little girls were little, the Christmas stocking and the Santa Claus and the cookies on the little plate, and they'd come out. And, they believed for the long time that Santa Claus, well, I don't know if little kids are listening to this, but we had a great time with this time of year. I love it. Love it.
It's the
And in
best.
fact, when I was a child, when Christmas was over, it was almost depressing.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I got to wait a whole nother year for that great feeling that I just had.
It's weird. I feel like once we hit, like New Year's is always great. I always am like extremely just down. January 1st into 2nd, and even in the 3rd, I'm just like,
Yeah, because you got to wait a whole nother year for the best feeling of the year.
it just feels. I'm all for like fresh starts and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but it just feels
Speaking
weird.
of fresh starts, are you a New Year's resolution kind of guy?
Not really.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where it's like every year I'm trying to lose weight. If I do it, I try to make it a tangible thing. Like a few years ago, I made it a priority to make sure like be around your family more.
Okay.
Like, I make
stick
that
with
your
it?
top priority. Yeah, absolutely. Like I told myself I was going to push myself harder between the two jobs of being with my family more, and I think I've done a good job of that since then because I think I got a little bit lost in my job on
Right.
both sides of it, and I think since then I've been really good about it.
So I only have one. I have
What is
one
it?
this year, and so I have a single. I have no. I really don't have any vices or problems or issues except one. I'm addicted to Diet Coke.
Really?
And caffeine is. You've heard my coffee story. Let me tell the coffee story again. In my entire life, I have not had so much as a quarter of a cup of coffee, and here's why. My mother, and I know you've heard the story, but some folks haven't. My mother is one of the most perpetually happy people you've ever met in your life. My mom is amazing, just this pleasant woman, all grown up, great mom. And we lived in Burns Flat, and in the morning, she would wake up, and Mom and Dad's room was at the end of the hall, and then my sisters, and then my brother and I. And I would hear my mother get up, and she'd be singing this song, this "Good morning to you, you live in a shoe," and she did it every morning. And I could hear her voice getting louder, and she'd stop at my sister's room, and I could hear her interact with them and sing. And she'd leave their room and start down the hall towards my room, and her voice would progressively get louder because she was getting closer to my door. And she would stop, and she'd open my door, and she'd look at me, and I'd look at her, and she'd smile at me, and I'd smile at her, all while singing the song. And she'd walk over to my blinds and open up, and the sun would stream in on my face, still singing a song, and she'd walk over, and she'd lean down to kiss me. And I remember thinking, if that's what your breath smells like when you drink coffee, I'm never going to drink coffee. And so as a result, I don't drink coffee, but I have to have caffeine for something. So I became a Diet Coke junkie. I will wake up in the morning, have a bowl of cereal, and a Diet Coke. And I kid you not. So if I was really telling you the truth, and I do not tell the truth to my wife about this because she worries about how much Diet Coke I drink, so I mislead her. So I'm getting penance for this right now. If you ask me honestly how many Diet Cokes that I drink in a day, it probably exceeds 15.
Attaboy.
And so it's all day, every day. I drink very little water, and it's not good for me. And so there's people out there shuddering in horror right now that I drink 15 to 16 Diet Cokes a day. It's awful. And so I don't know how hard it is to go cold turkey on Diet Coke. I feel like I'm going to have a raging headache from caffeine withdrawal. But my New Year's resolution for the year is 2025 with not one single Diet Coke.
You're going to cut yourself off cold
I'm
turkey.
going to go cold turkey.
Hope you got some Advil ready to go.
I'm going to try. I mean, I have not had a Diet Coke since I was a kid. And I'm going to try to go cold turkey. And part of it is, I had the heart thing this year. I'm trying to get a little healthier, trying to do some things I can do to get better. And I feel like the aspartame in Diet Coke's not good for me. Is it possible to go cold turkey? I have no idea. I have no earthly idea how hard it's going to be to stop drinking Diet Cokes when that's all I do all day. The people that smoke reach for a cigarette. People that vape reach for a vape. I've got Diet Coke near me all the time. And I'm going to go cold turkey.
So, is it water? What's going to be your?
It needs to be water.
Okay.
I don't know what to substitute for the caffeine. Obviously, I know because I can read that the back of an Excedrin bottle, which I'll need because of caffeine, an Excedrin pill has the equivalent of a Diet Coke in terms of caffeine. One migraine
Really?
Excedrin tablet is the equivalent of a diet can of Diet Coke. So I can substitute that, but I don't know how good that's for my liver or kidney to constantly be popping migraine Excedrin pills instead of a Diet Coke. We're going to have to play it by ear, but I'm going to do my best to knock out what if you added that up, thousands of Diets of Cokes.
Woo, man. That's impressive.
We'll see.
Look
It's
at
only
you.
impressive if I succeed.
We're going to check into that
Yeah.
once we get back next episode
See how I'm
see how
doing.
that's going. Absolutely.
You know what? Anybody out there listening, you should. How would they email to tell us their diet? How many Diet Cokes a person drinks in a given day?
Noble@McIntyreLaw.com.
Yeah, I'm gonna get
That's
1,000
it.
emails.
There you go. That'll do it for the third episode of the Noble McIntyre Show. We'll be back next year, it sounds like.
Yep.
Once we kind of get
Yep.
through the holiday season, we'll see how you're doing on your quest for Diet Coke, or lack thereof,
Or
I
lack
should say.
I hope that we roll into that first one. Let's say we're 15 days into the year, that I can honestly sit here and tell you, hey, I'm still Diet Coke free, instead of lying to you like I would my wife.
Attaboy. Good job. Good job. Noble McIntyre, as always, if you need anything, 777-7000.
Yep.
He'll get you hooked up. Dylan Buckingham for Noble McIntyre. This has been fun. We'll see you again next year.
Let's do it. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.